Good evening and welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint podcast number 257, recorded live on Monday, August 10th, 2015. I am your host, Todd Klindt, and I am able to do this every day every week because of the fine folks at Rackspace. So throw them a little traffic, go out to sharepoint.rackspace.com and tell them, hey, jump on the chat, say hey to those guys there, go out there, see about all the great SharePoint things that we do. You can also go to www.rackspace.com/Microsoft and find out about all the Microsoft things that we do. And you can also go out to, toddklindt.com/blog, youtube.com/ToddKlindtNetcast, all those great things, and find out all the great things. Or hit me up on Twitter at Todd Klindt. Send me an email, todd.klindt@rackspace.com. All kinds of different URLs and all kinds of things there to throw. I get you all kinds of different ways to interact with me. All right, the first thing I want to start with, I come to you with a heavy heart, and that heavy heart is the production notes. It's been a while since we've had any good, gritty production notes where we've lost content or something like that, and this week we almost had to do that. So the way that my production process works, I get done on Monday night. I usually start a new note for the next podcast so I can start putting things in there, and I do this on YouTube. So I have a Google Hangout on air, and then the streams on YouTube, and it records on YouTube. And what I normally do is I download the video and then I slice it up, where Lori puts the ins and the outs. That came out all wrong. This starts because we stream before we go live, that kind of thing. And then I put the lower thirds on and I push it back out. But that process takes some time because once the podcast is finished, then YouTube does some transcoding and stuff in the background. And so I can't download it right away. You guys can view it right away, but as the owner, I can't download it right away. So I used to sit up on Monday nights and wait for it. And then after a while, I decided, heck with it. On Tuesday morning, I'll do it and download it then. And I've been doing that for months, years, I forget. So Tuesday, I woke up and went to download it, and my podcast, the notes had 40 some minutes of talk, and there's a little before and a little after. The video on YouTube was 37 minutes, which is less than 40, certainly less than the 50 or so that I thought it was going to be. And turns out Google had some problems that night, Monday night, in a whole bunch of recordings, and it basically skipped every other minute at one point. So it would play for a minute and then would skip ahead a minute and play for a minute, skip ahead for a minute. So it was completely worthless. Audio, video, all of it was gone. So I thought all hope was lost. I thought I was going to have to retire from the podcasting business in shame and never do this again. And Lori found a thread on the YouTube forums, and some other people had the problem, and some support folks at YouTube were like, "Oh, we'll look into it. We'll see if we can get your stuff back." Didn't really hold out a lot of hope, so I was just going to have to cancel it, and just because I wasn't going to re-record it or anything like that. And then Thursday morning, out of the blue, it just showed up. So I downloaded a quick Thursday, pushed the audio out there, pushed the video out there, but then was gone all weekend and just got back here a couple hours ago and haven't got everything done. So I don't have the blog posts out, the tweets, but it is on YouTube. It is on audio. But that did scare me a little bit. So now I've got Audacity installed, and I'm recording this on Audacity and on YouTube so that if something happens to the YouTube recording, then I can at least put the audio out. But it was pretty terrifying, and it's just one of those things that when I'm depending on the cloud, sometimes it hiccups. So I probably will do the local recording, at least of the audio, for a while. So we got that going, but everything's going. Like I said, I'll get all the links and stuff out. And Lori was kind of to put in my notes that I haven't blogged it yet. Thanks, Lori. On to topics. So this is very fitting. We got a good crowd in the chat room, way better than we normally do on a summer night. We got a good 20 some people in there right now. Summer's usually tough because people are out doing way better things than this. But one of the things that I wanted to mention, and he just showed up in the chat room, my friend Brian LaLancette, he and I have been friends for several years. He is the godfather of the Auto SP installer. Good guy, good community. And as like I said, I've bounced things off him over the years. I met him several times. Good guy. Today, it was a big day for him. He started at Microsoft. And so he had pictures on Facebook of him, his new badge, and he's wearing this ridiculous shirt. I can only assume that his wife did not dress him today, that she went ahead and let him dress himself. And that was what happened. But it's great because it's immortalized in his ID thing. So I wanted to give congratulations to Brian for getting a new job at Microsoft. I'm sure he will be well loved. and all that. And still need to talk to him about some stuff. But now that he works at the mothership, hopefully we can do some stuff. But congratulations, Brian. I wanted to throw that out there. And I see now that you're in the chat room. You'll hear it for good, and everybody can congratulate you. So good on that. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was the webinar that Jason Himmelstein and I have been doing for IT Unity, and we are almost done. So we are a couple of days away from the final episode left in the trilogy. There were 3 episodes left, not unlike, some of the great trilogies of our time: Star Wars, The Matrix, Die Hard, Dumb and Dumber, all of these great trilogies. And I've got my own trilogy now. And that is wrapping up this week, this Thursday. So don't feel bad if you've missed the first 2 episodes of the trilogy. I've got the hookup for you. And this whole trilogy is about Microsoft identities, Azure AD, Office 365, on-prem identities, all those kind of things. And we started out 2 weeks ago with the episode that we called Making Sense of Microsoft Identities. This was a lot of talking, a lot of theory, a lot of explanation, a lot of flapping of gums, lots of PowerPoint. It was painful for everybody involved, painful for me, painful for Jason, certainly painful for those of you that suffered through it. Well, we kind of explained with SharePoint 2013 and with SharePoint 2016 how hybrid is going to be important, and how you can't do hybrid without a good identity story. And we kind of talked about what some of the options are, and we're, kind of got people excited about that, and then gave everybody some homework. And John Liu in the chat room is saying, but in trilogies, isn't the third one always crap? I'm sure that sounded different in your head when you thought that, John. This will not be crap. Make no mistake about it. So the first one is a lot of theory and explanation and all that, and we got that out there in episode 1. You can download that now. There'll be links in the chat. It's recorded, so you can do that. And then episode 2, we gave everybody some homework in episode 1. We said in episode 2, we're going to be actually doing this stuff. We're going to be walking through it. We're going to be configuring it, setting it up, and all that. And if you want to follow along, then have all this stuff done. And we did that. And episode 2 of the trilogy was where the rubber met the road. We installed Azure Active Directory Connect, walked through the options, set the user profile sync up, or not the user profile sync, but the Azure AD sync up, showed how users, the first one got pushed up there, and then how to do individual things afterwards. We created a user on local AD, showed how it got pushed up to Azure AD, all that kind of stuff. So that was pretty cool. But now we've got 1 episode left, episode 3 of the trilogy. Again, you can watch episodes 1 and 2 from downloads, but you can see episode 3 live, and that will be Thursday at 3 p.m. Central. And with this one, we're going to get some of the interesting stuff. So we're going to show you what to do after you've got users in Azure Active Directory and up in Office 365, what you can do with them. We're going to be showing you some things that you can do in the UI, so the web pages. And I'm going to break out some lovely, lovely PowerShell. And I'm going to show you how to use PowerShell to do a lot of the tasks that you're going to have to be do. And one of the things that I'm also going to show you is one of my favorite blog posts is the blog post where I use PowerShell to rename all of my databases in SharePoint, SharePoint_config. That was one of my great PowerShell learning experiences, has stuck with me always. I have a very similar one for Azure AD. Not quite as destructive, but very close, and broke things for a very long time until I realized what happened. So I will show you that script, and then I will tell you that story. Scott Hogue is in the chat room. He's kind of been the adult supervision for Jason and I in these last couple of weeks. And he has mentioned that episode 3 is also all auf Deutsch. It will all be in German. So you've got that to look forward to. You've got 3 days to get up to speed on German. So consider yourselves warned. But that's been a good time. Jason and I have had a good time with this, and we've learned a lot, setting things up and walking through things and finding all the things that can be broken. Bob in the chat room said that in 10 years I'll get to remake the whole thing, but with better special effects. Yeah, I'm hoping when we remake it, the stars will be more handsome and maybe sound more intelligent, less like the Jar Jar Binks that I think we sound like now. But when you do that thing, we got an hour's worth of stuff, and we're doing demos and all that. We're pre-recording the demos so that we know they all work, and they all work. But there's also a chat room alongside of that. So while we're doing the demos, you can ask questions. And since Jason and I aren't doing the demos at that moment, we can give you our full attention and answer questions and things like that. It's been a good time. It's a good platform. I really love that. So watch that. We'd love to see you show up for that. And the folks at IT Unity, itunity.com, you can find all kinds of great stuff there. So, once you're signing up for this, see what other things they've got going on. Another thing going on is, as we all know, I know you're just anxiously waiting every morning, getting up, pulling out your phone, and seeing if it's happened. The SharePoint 2016 beta is supposed to drop sometime this month, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm super excited about this. And since I couldn't actually get the beta right away, I was just kind of sitting there staring at, hitting F5 and all that. I wrote a magazine article on the 5 things you can do to get ready for SharePoint 2016. And I did a bad job at the clickbait. I should have said, here's 5 things you can do to get ready for the SharePoint 2016 beta, and number 3 will shock you. I forgot that part. I apologize. It's almost like I don't care. I feel horrible about that. But and I've talked about this the last couple of weeks, but read the article, for goodness sakes. Give me the hits on the internet. I need all that. That's how I validate my existence. But basically, I talk about how to get some virtual machines set up so you can test everything, how you need to have an Office 365 tenant ready to go, and so that you can sync up to it. You're going to want an internet domain. You're going to have that ready to go. You're going to want to have a SharePoint 2013 database ready to go that you can upgrade and practice the upgrade thing with. But again, click the link, and that's at toddklindt.com/ready for SP 2016 beta. And but that's good stuff. So that any day now, it could be launching right now. I have no idea. Any day now. So that's a fun one there. So speaking of other things that are going to come out, this is something I almost didn't mention this, but Brian in the chat room, and you won't believe what happens next. I think maybe I'll save that one for when the beta actually comes out. I'll say, the SharePoint 2016 beta is here, and you won't believe what happens next. I'll put that in the hopper. I like that. So another thing that was released, I think it was released today, Microsoft released Windows 10 for the Raspberry Pi. And so the Raspberry Pi is this little guy right here. It's a little computer. It's a little hobbyist computer. I got this one at Ignite. Microsoft was giving these away. Why was Microsoft giving these away, you ask? Because Windows 10 runs on this thing. And it's got 1 gig of RAM. It's got some crazy processor that I'm not even sure really exists. It runs off of a micro SD card. It's got a couple of USB ports on it. It's got HDMI. It's got a very noisy wrapper. But this is the little guy right here. And Windows 10 runs on this. Now, it's not the Windows 10 like what runs on your tablet or your desktop. You don't get the full UI or anything like that. But you do get a bunch of the runtime stuff. You get PowerShell, things like that. And they released the full Windows 10 for this. So this one right now, I haven't got the full Windows 10. Again, I was on the road. This has got one of the previews on it, but the full Windows 10 now has wireless support and Bluetooth support and all that. And my phone is vibrating every time somebody mentions me in a tweet. But anyway, that's out now. So this is Microsoft's way to get into the whole poorly named Internet of Things. So you can hook up a bunch of sensors and motors and mouse traps and all that kind of stuff to this, and it will do things for you. Now, my house 2 weeks ago nearly flooded twice because my sump pump float failed. And so I started hooking my sump pump up manually, and then the sump pump itself failed. So I have a little water sensor there that screams bloody murder when the water level in my sump pit rises. But that is only ever any good if there's somebody here at home to be annoyed by it. So I was thinking a great project for this would be a water meter that, when water sensor that comes up, when water touches it, it sends me out a tweet or emails me or opens my garage door and closes it or something. I don't know, some way to signal the neighbors that my house is soon going to be underwater. But those are the great kind of Internet of Things that you can do with this. And Microsoft has a good projects page for this, and I should have put the link in my notes. I'll put in the notes at the end. But as people come up with more projects for running Windows on the Raspberry Pi, they've got that there. So that's been good stuff. And you can use a bunch of the Arduino things with it. And there's just all kinds of fun, robots and lions and tigers and bears and all that. So that's fun. These little boards are cheap. They're like $40, something like that. So it's a good time. So Mark is saying that the basement flooding sucks. Yes, it was not a good time. I will admit to that. It was not fun. Webinar, and I knew that thing could go off, and I was going to be on camera. So I learned that I can change out a sump pump. That's what I learned right before it was. So had I had something like this, I would have been able to do something with it. So this is fun. Go ahead and grab you one of these. Not to be outdone, because I have a sickness where I have to buy all kinds of things. I got this a couple of days ago, and again, I was out of town all weekend and haven't had a chance to look at it. But you guys remember the sad tale of woe that was my little machine, Wormy. Wormy was a little device that came with Windows, and when it came from the factory, it was infected with a virus and tried to take my network down. Good times, good times. Well, because I'm a slow learner, the folks that made Wormy, Migo, they've made another Migo device, and I'm just a big dummy and I bought it. So this is what it looks like. And this is actually what it looks like. And the technical thing is it's a Migo Pad T02, I believe, if you want to go out and search for that. I found it on Alibaba. And if you guys are paying attention, this looks conspicuously like the little Intel compute stick. And it's got all the same things under the hood. It's got the Intel Z3735F processor. It's got 2 gig of RAM and I think 32 gig of storage and all that. Same stuff under the hood as most of these little tablets that I have and the previous little device that I have. The big differentiator that this has is it's a little bigger. It's got a little better airflow, but it also has 2 full-size USB ports. So it's got one on this side and then, don't look now, one on that side. And I found where the other one has one full USB port and then a USB to go port on it. And I found that's kind of clumsy, and I've not had a lot of fun with that. So this little guy on Alibaba was 80, 90 bucks. I forget exactly which, a bunch of vendors have them. So I got one of these. The Intel Compute Stick, if you buy one of those, they're looking on Amazon. They're looking like they're like $150. So I kind of bought this direct from the manufacturer. It took like 4 weeks to get here, but I got it. So I'll be putting Windows 10 on this. Windows 10 runs on the other one just fine. The other one is not here. The other one's ran off. I don't know where it's at. But Windows 10 runs just fine on this, and I've got it hooked up to a TV. Maybe I'll put some digital signage on it or something like that. But got one of these. If I think about it, and if I have time, I'll do an unboxing video or something like that. So you can get one of those. I've got a link to an Amazon flight or an Amazon. Jason's on a flight, an Amazon thing, but I think they're unavailable. But that's just kind of fun. A cheap little device to put Windows on, hook it up to a TV. And again, it runs full Windows, so you can hook up, keyboard, mouse, whatever. It does Bluetooth, it does Wi-Fi. It's got a micro USB slot in it so that you can, the OS will run on one drive, all your media and that will run on another. So I've had a lot of fun with that, more fun than I probably should have. All right, speaking of other things that aren't SharePoint and things that I've been playing with, like I said, I was gone this weekend, so I didn't get a whole lot of time to look at the news and all that. But one thing that did catch my eye, Paul Thurrott had on his website, that Microsoft is releasing Cortana for Android. Now, those of you that follow the podcast know that a couple of months ago, I switched from my much beloved Windows Phone to Android. And the whole reason was I needed apps. I needed to be able to run stuff. So now I've got a Galaxy S5, and it's okay. I've got apps, and I love the apps. Like we were at the zoo this weekend. The zoo had an app and it had a map, and that rhymed. I should have had something else to go with that, but those are things that this Windows Phone never has. And we had somebody checking up on our cats while we were gone. And when my garage door opens and closes, I get a thing. Just all kinds of stuff that I just could never do with Windows Phone because there were just no apps for Windows Phone. Just none of the apps that I wanted were there. It was just infuriating. But as I've been using Android, I found that I just don't like the OS. So for instance, at the beginning of this podcast, some folks were talking about me on Twitter, saying nothing but good things. You don't have to worry about checking up on it, nothing but good things. I can't figure out in Android how to have things show up in the notification panel without getting other notifications, without sound or vibrating or anything like that. And that's all stuff I can do with Windows Phone. I can't figure out how to do it with Android. The mail is a mess on Android. I can't have multiple shortcuts with multiple accounts and things like that. So the best of both worlds would be if I could, get the apps that I wanted and everything on one device. Well, a couple of big things happened this week. Number one, Microsoft announced that Cortana can replace Google Now. So Cortana is the voice-activated stuff. I miss Cortana. I use Cortana all the time on my Windows Phone. Haven't been able to use it on Android. It's got Google Now, and I haven't set it up much, but I did miss Cortana. So that's coming out. You have to sign up for it. It's a private beta. I've signed up for it and sent offers to bribe any number of people that I work at, that I know that work at Microsoft. Got to add Brian LaLancette to that list now. So that's one thing that's made running my Android phone has been tolerable, because things like Office Lens and OneNote and all these great Microsoft apps run on Android now. So that's made it. But the OS itself is kind of frustrating. But the good news about that is another story that I saw at Ignite that Microsoft meant, or I guess it was a build that Microsoft had mentioned that they had a couple of different initiatives on how to run Android apps on Windows Phone 10. One of them was extensions or something to Visual Studio, so that the developers of Android apps could bring their Android apps into Visual Studio and compile them for Windows Phone. The other way that they had it was there was going to be a way for Windows Phone to convert or whatever Android apps to Windows Phone apps. And they were kind of cagey on that, and I was never too excited about that because those things never seem to do everything you need them to do. So I was kind of wait and see. This week, well, I guess maybe today or this weekend, Windows Central put a story out that the project that Microsoft had, where you will take an APK, an Android program file, and pull that into an AppX, which is what Windows Phone runs. The project that does that is a thing called Project Astoria, and that has leaked, apparently. So it looks like, and I don't have it, it's not legitimate or anything like that, but it looks like Project Astoria is something that you run on your PC or your Mac, and you bring the APK file in from Android, and it spits out the AppX, and then you sideload that onto your Windows Phone. So there are piracy concerns sort of with that, but you've always been able to sideload APK files on Android. So an APK file, again, is the actual application, and you've always been able to, with various means, take an APK file that you've purchased on one Android machine and sideload it onto another one. You've been able to do that forever. I did that with my very first Android phones. Legal stuff, of course. And so now there's concern that this Project Astoria will be used for that. So you're not seeing links for it. Windows Central wouldn't link to it or tell you how to get it or anything. But I'm very curious on that, because I would love to see, I've got a bunch of Android apps that I use now, like the one that opens my garage door and all this kind of stuff. I'm curious how high fidelity this app is. And if so, I'll be able to go back to using Windows Phone 10, be able to use my 830, which I keep charged and at the ready right here, and then just start pulling Android apps in. So very excited about that. I hope it gets done in a legitimate way, and I hope it gets done soon, because I would like to use it. All that talking making me thirsty. And apparently, so Mark Chrisman, who's in the chat room, he lives in Rochester, New York, which is where Xerox is at. Apparently, Astoria was the very first thing that was with copied in a Xerox machine. So that must be what that's for. And they have different, so they had some Mac stuff too. They had different projects, but that's interesting. So as a Windows Phone guy, it's got to be hell for Windows Phone developers to have gotten up to speed on that. But I don't know. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to go back to my Windows Phone. There's a bunch of stuff that I miss, but I miss all the apps. I would hate to give the apps up. All right. So I got one more thing to go here, and we get you guys out on time. I'm going to get to bed early, and it's going to be great. I'm going to sleep like a baby. This is something that I've complained about for a long time and have been... Oh, yes. And John, so back to that story. So one thing John Liu mentioned in the chat room that I forgot to mention. Right now, the Project Astoria seems to work on everything except for apps that use the Google Play or the Google infrastructure thing. So the Play Store, Play whatever. Google has this. So there's Android is very confusing. Part of Android is free, and that's called ASOP, or Android Open Source Project. And that's the OS and all the underpinnings and all that, but it's not the Google applications. So anybody can get the Android Open Source Project and put it on whatever they want to, and it's free and they can do whatever, but they can't put the Google apps on there. Those are licensed apps. And as John has mentioned, that the Project Astoria does not support any of the Google apps yet. Okay. So the last story I wanted to talk about was something that I've complained about for a long time. I talked on the podcast a while back about how I still use Dropbox, and how I think I've got a blog post on it. One of the things that, so I take it back. So use Dropbox instead of OneDrive. Started using OneDrive when I got Windows 8.1 because it was built in and it kind of made some sense. But there's just a bunch of things that OneDrive didn't do. I use Dropbox to share a ton of files with a ton of people. And there's just 100 examples of this. I use it to share pictures of my kids with my mom. I use it to share documents with people I work with, like Jason and I do in this podcast or this webinar thing. We've used Dropbox to share video files and slides and all kinds of stuff like that. But one of the things that makes that just absolutely perfect to use is that when I share a folder with Jason, Jason can sync that folder down to his local machine, and it just shows up in his file system. And he operates on it like he does any other file. And then he saves it, and it syncs up to my folder remotely, and it just shows up on my machine, and it's perfect. And there's no going out to web pages or any of this crazy stuff. It's just a file in a file system the way we've been doing this for 30 years. OneDrive doesn't do it like that. If I share a file or a folder with somebody from OneDrive, they can only get to it in the web browser, and then it makes things really ugly. So last week, Microsoft announced that OneDrive, all versions of OneDrive, so OneDrive and OneDrive for Business both, will now allow you to sync locally shared folders. Now, there's a couple of caveats to this, and they're unfortunate, but they're ones you can work around. One of them is in order to sync that folder locally, you must have at least edit rights on the folder, which is kind of unfortunate, but for most of the stuff that I do, it would work, but it's kind of clumsy. So now when you go into the OneDrive web page, you've got your OneDrive folders, and then if you scroll down, there's the group of things that are shared with you. If you have ones that your folders that are shared with you that you have editor above, you've got a checkbox, and you can check that, and then at the top it has sync locally, and then it shows up on your file system. So that's kind of cool. So Jason and I have used that in the last week. That works pretty well. So the one limitation is you have to have edit rights, so you couldn't do it with people that have read only. The other thing is it doesn't work with Windows 8.1 apparently, because Windows 8.1 does that shadow file thing, and the OneDrive clients are very different. Now, I think they haven't completely rolled this out yet. So if you go in there and you don't see it, it might be because it's not rolled out to you. But again, make sure somebody is sharing a folder with you and that you have at least edit rights on that folder. But this is a big thing. OneDrive, this has been a huge limitation. One of the big reasons I haven't used OneDrive before, and now that that's fixed, I'm going to give it another shot. I got a lot of space out there on OneDrive, so I'll probably try that. All right, we're close. We're really close. We're on to the shameless self-promotion part. So of course I told you about the IT Unity thing. So that's going on. Sign up for that, itunity.com. Under webinars, part 3 is this Thursday. Watch parts 1 and part 2. Tomorrow, at this very time, tomorrow night, 24 hours from now, I will be knee deep, probably armpits deep, into presenting for the Mississippi PowerShell user group. And it just so happens that is at the same time, or going to be on the same subject as this webinar that I'm doing. So I'm going to record, go through all of my PowerShell demos for our webinar, and I'm going to practice it for the Mississippi folks. So that's going to work out well. So you can find out more about that. You can go to mspsug.com, the Mississippi PowerShell user group. And I am presenting remotely. You can sign up remotely, so you don't need to go down to Mississippi or even come over to Iowa to my office. I would invite you over. You're welcome. There's really not a lot of seating. There's one stool. I could probably bring him to the chair. It's kind of tight down here. The camera makes it look much bigger than it really is. That I didn't mean to say that. But you can watch it from the comfort of your own desk or whatever. And I think they record them. All that. But that's going to be on using Office 365, PowerShell and Office 365 and Azure and all those things. That's tomorrow night. That's Tuesday, August 11th at 8:30. This won't be rendered by then, so you probably miss it, but it'll be out there for you. Then in a couple of weeks, so 2 weeks from today, starts SP TechCon. That is August 24th through the 27th. My goodness, how the time flies. For that, I will also be doing the PowerShell with Office 365 session. SP TechCon. If you see me at SP TechCon, for goodness sakes, collar me, grab me, say hey, let me know what's going on. I would love to talk to you. Would love to see how you're doing. And then in a month, oh my goodness, September 18th and 19th is SharePoint-A-Looza in Branson, Missouri. You can go to SharePoint-A-Looza.org and find out all about that. And I don't know if we've nailed down what topics I'm talking about. We're getting close. We should probably figure that out. But we should do that. And that's down in Branson. Again, if you see me down there, say hey. And then Dev Intersections out in Las Vegas. That is October 26th through the 29th at the MGM. And you can go to devintersection.com and find out about that. And I'll be talking about more topics that I don't know about. So what could possibly go wrong? So thanks to everybody. The chat room's been great. Stick around, guys. We got some chatting to do in there. But I will be back here next week, same time. The 24th, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I keep threatening to move this podcast, but I don't know when to. And my employer wants me to work Monday afternoons, turns out, I guess. So we'll be staying at this time for a while, but I don't know what we're going to do with the week of SP TechCon. But stick around. Hopefully I'll get this one out sooner next week. But thanks for your patience, and I will see you next week. Talk to you later.